Welcome to episode 54 of Rebirth Revolution. My name is Melissa Olson. This week we will be revisiting the second episode of the podcast from a year ago. I'm doing this because everything we have discussed since then is based on the premises that were laid out in the first few episodes, and we need to revisit that to see where we are now. Here's where we were in episode 2. Our goal is to increase the light and minimize the darkness. That being the case, we are going to share our ideas with one another without inflicting damage. It's not because we don't want criticism, it's because we want to retrain our brains to engage in a manner that only brings light. This doesn't mean you have to agree with anything that I think. It just means that you will share what you think without falling into the destructive pattern of bringing darkness into the conversation. The darkness makes you want to burn a person to the ground with a killer argument, or to shut them up or shame them. We will all honor the fact that everyone gets to see it a different way, and that everyone is invited to contribute to the conversation. We will express our views to one another without tearing down each other's ideas. Don't tell me what part of what someone else said is garbage. Tell me what you believe, and every bit as much as it is important that you be heard, it is important that you take the time to read what others believe as well. I promise you there will be some thoughts they have that will further inform your thinking. None of us can consider every angle because we are limited by our own life experience. Be appreciative when people who live a different existence than the one you live share what it looks like from where they sit. It just may save you from having to sit in the same spot. This will be a conversation that encourages the freedom to think outside of what is considered conventional wisdom. This is necessary because conventional wisdom got us in the jam we currently face. I want each and every one of us to develop the bravery to piece together our own unique belief system quilt. Each square will be a thought that resonates with you. The Rebirth Revolution ends our acceptance of quilts assembled and mass-produced by someone else. I will block people who are looking to do harm to other people. No one will learn anything from snark and rancor. That is of the darkness, and it won't get us where we want to go. You may feel the deep pull to become combative with people who see things differently. This will provide a great lesson that has the potential to move you forward. If you react strongly to a thought that someone else has, this is a clue into internal work you need to do. That they said it is no big deal. That it got to you is. We are all working at different levels, so some thoughts expressed by people from higher levels of awareness will go right over your head. Don't get mad. Just know that what they are saying is not only not stupid, but it may make sense to you further down the road and be the missing piece your quilt needs. Some comments will be from people who are currently at a lower level than you. Don't get mad. They are where you once were in terms of awareness, whether you remember it or not. Move on and wait for a comment that really resonates with you. That will come from someone at or near your current level of awareness. The sweet spot we are trying to hit here is where we take in ideas that are just a tad out of your comfortable range, something that challenges you to grow. It's like in yoga, where you get in a position, you think you're at your limit, then the instructor asks you to move 1 inch more. You do. you can, and you didn't know it until you were asked. I'm asking you to go 1 inch further. In our culture, we are taught to avoid discomfort at every turn. If you feel discomfort, pour yourself a drink. If you feel discomfort, take a pill. If you feel discomfort, eat some chunky almond butter. Okay, that's just me. But growth does not happen within a protective bubble. Growth happens when you move into something that you're a little afraid of. It happens when you face something difficult without running away. Here's a favorite quote of mine. It's from David Bowie. If you feel safe in the area you're working in, you're not working in the right area. Always go a little further into the water than you feel you're capable of being in. Go a little bit out of your depth. And when you don't feel that your feet are quite touching the bottom, you're just about in the right place to do something exciting. It is not my goal to get everyone to agree with my point of view. It is my goal to help you find your own point of view and to refine it through exposure to the perspectives of others. I want to provide a space where you can engage in an exercise in growth. I want to help you find your voice. I want to remind you that you are in battle daily and that the only thing that matters is what you choose. I want to support you in choosing light over darkness. I want to help you strengthen the greatest tool you have to discern between light and darkness, your intuition. I want you to recognize that you are part of a huge community of people who seek light and work daily to lift us all up. I want to help remind you of why you are here and to reignite your excitement about having chosen this time and this battle. This podcast can help you grow even if you don't agree with anything I say. The process of hearing a thought and deciding if you agree or not and determining what you do believe is an act of growth. The intent is to share what I think while poking and prodding you to get in touch with what you believe. The practice of expressing what you think and feel without resorting to bringing darkness into the conversation is also an act of growth. It takes real discipline and a positive intent. These are muscles we all need to strengthen. The rebirth is a marathon, not a sprint, so we are going to need all the strength and positive strategies we can build. Update. Those who listen to this podcast have been extremely thoughtful and decent. In everyday life, this practice of allowing others to think what they think without reacting negatively has been super difficult. A year ago, we had no idea how bad things would get, nor did we have any idea the insane ideas that others would be floating. There has been so much darkness, and it is a struggle to not get equally dark in reaction. But we cannot be dragged down to lower levels by this. We must stay in the light. A big congratulations to everyone who is able to do that for even part of their day. It will serve your further growth. Plus, it is apparent that those who think darkly cannot be talked into the alternative, not with facts or feelings. The example of being one who is walking in the light may give others the reason they need to choose differently. They must choose differently. We can't do that for them. The only way to move to a higher level is through your own choices. Back to the original content. In the previous episode, I talked about the first of the 3 tracks you are on in your life, your Earth experience. The 3 tracks are intertwined, and understanding of each one is necessary to see the big picture. The second track you are participating in is the collective culture. When you agreed to come to Earth, you chose the culture that would best facilitate your personal growth. One of the issues I came here to work on is radical self-acceptance. So I came, as a woman, to this culture where I am automatically paid less, given less respect, and told daily the 5,000 reasons that I am not enough. I came to a culture that has historically treated women unfairly. I was taught that it wasn't proper to speak up for or defend myself, so I was easily slotted as wrong. I came at an exciting time, though, since so many are working together to reverse the ridiculous notions of the past. This is my perfect playground. What you came here to work on can also be found in the culture you chose. You knew in advance the rules and repercussions of the culture you were entering. Clues about your work here can be unearthed by, first, determining whether you entered a culture that is accepting of you or is rejecting of you. If it automatically accepts you, then part of your work is to extend that acceptance to those who have been rejected. If the culture rejects you, then you have self-acceptance to work on, along with being a force for change, here to enlighten the culture at large. Update. This figures heavily into the reckoning we have the opportunity to participate in right now, the addressing and repairing of structural racism and the violence that fosters. It should be considered part of your curriculum, whether you are white, brown, or black. We all play a role in this work. This is a perfect time to do one of the things that you came here to do. It's a perfect pathway to your growth. Back to the original. All of us will be challenged to grow through the changing tides of the culture, whether they flow in our favor or not. There are many who thought they had earned acceptance in our culture just to see that all reversed in a blink of an eye. You begin learning the ins and outs of our social agreements when you are a child. What you learned is wholly dependent on those who nurtured you, and that may have been brilliant or horribly wrong. For most people, it was a messy mix, good on some fronts and bad on others. Children are completely dependent on those who nurture them to figure out what's up. As we all know, some kids get a great foundation because their parents have acquired one, or they get a shaky foundation from parents who don't have it figured out yet. As you grow, you are exposed to more and more people who will either validate what you have been taught or bring it into question. The size of the pool grows radically as you move from your home to bigger and bigger schools until you are dumped out into the general population. The collective culture both feeds you and challenges you. There was a time when everyone lived in their own little bubble, agreeing to basic rules that those in their immediate surroundings had established. It was clear what the tribe believed and what the consequences would be should you disagree. Most people went along to get along. Knowing that you had to look your neighbors in the eye every day made it more difficult to forge your own path. No one wanted to be the weirdo, so people hid everything about themselves that made them unique and interesting. They all dressed as the tribe dressed, acted as the tribe acted, and decidedly did not ruffle feathers. Update. In the past, people began dressing better and had tight societal constructs, but were still barbaric in their treatment of others. Many low-level people did very low-level things, but the collective culture accepted those actions. The reckoning we face now encompasses the low-level actions that used to be seen as reasonable or at least justifiable. When you look into the past, you can see the brutality that played out in everyday life. Wives and children were brutalized in their own homes. Black people were lynched in town squares. These horrors were somehow seen as reasonable actions. When you are at low levels of spiritual awareness, they do seem normal. Today, we see people who, given the opportunity to show us who they really are expressing these same ideas. Between the dark leadership and the mismanaged pandemic, people are more themselves than ever. It is horrifying, but important to know. We rarely seem to do the work on things that are easy to ignore. Lower-level people are still attached to concepts like Nazism, which my father risked his life many decades ago to eradicate. Back to the original. When people revere the olden days, they are expressing exhaustion with being responsible for a more difficult curriculum. Being authentic is much more difficult than falling into line with everyone else. Now we have social media where people from all over the globe can tell you what they think about what you've said, done, and look like. While there are more people who may disagree with your thinking, you will find an opportunity to find more who see things your way. Your tribe may be made up of people all over the globe who you wouldn't have met otherwise. I think many people are shocked when they post a thought, admittedly one that is indicative of being from a lower level of awareness, and everyone loses their collective minds. What you need to realize is that comment makes total sense to the person who posted it. Pointing out what is problematic about their thought may not truly sink in for years, or maybe not even in this lifetime. I feel bad for people who get piled on for things that are outside of their current awareness. All the screaming from others makes absolutely no sense to them. If they could truly understand why what they said was wrong, they wouldn't have said it in the first place. We are all bound together by the culture we chose to join here on earth, but we are not all working at the same level or working on the same issues. We need to accept that the only thoughts that make sense to us come from people who are at or near our own level of awareness. The rest of it zips over your head or reminds you of yourself when you were not quite where you are now. The collective culture inches along while deciding what is and is not acceptable. The rules continue to shift as we have more people who are capable of empathy and driven by integrity. But the collective culture, like each individual's personal journey, is constantly tempted to go backwards. Forging ahead takes difficult work. Going backwards is simply giving up the fight. There will always be forces that try to undo the good that has been done. This can only be remedied by the actions of each individual in the collective. We must choose, and choose again, what is right. Complacency will result in backwards movement. The collective culture illustrates the average of every member's level of spiritual awareness. Higher level people learn from the past and move forward. Lower level people are still attached to concepts like Nazism, which my father risked his life many decades ago to eradicate. The collective culture will always be made up of students at all the different levels of spiritual awareness. This is the same in every culture on the planet. There will always be those who kill, rape, rob, and destroy. Those are the kindergartners and first graders of the spiritual awareness grade levels, and they exist in every single culture. There are always those who represent the highest forms of awareness, those working their spiritual master's degrees in every culture. Most of the people are working in the grades in between. Since each and every culture has the full gamut of grade levels, it needs to take into account all grade levels. The thoughts and needs of first graders are as important as the thoughts and needs of those in college levels. The difference is that you need to make sure they do not have power over others, since that is not something they can handle properly. In the Rebirth Revolution, we are shaping the collective culture by our individual choices. We are deciding daily what we will and will not accept in the world around us. This is not something that any of us can sleep on. We need to get up each day and be resolute in what we believe and what we want our culture to reflect. Your personal movement, both forward and backward, changes the level of our collective culture. Let's do what we can to move this forward. Update. While much of our recent focus is on those at the lowest levels, the people who make me the most nervous right now are those in the middle grades. They will have the power to choose a leader who will either continue to drag us back into darkness, or they can choose one who will start to work on the healing and movement forward. The choices made by those at the lowest levels are not as horrible to those in the middle as they are to those at the higher levels. The choice that those in the middle grades will make will define the future of our democracy, should there be one, and the work that we will all be in for next. Thanks for listening to Rebirth Revolution. Next week, we will dig in deep on where you are on your third track, your spiritual awareness progression. Stay tuned. Until then, tell the truth and expect it from others. Step back from the chaos for a moment and become the observer. Find ways to bring yourself back to center and wear your mask. Remember, you are loved exactly as much as every other person on the planet, not 1 ounce more or 1 ounce less. Stay strong and safe and engaged in the revolution. We need you.